The sun beats down upon a sea of iron. 40,000 men, one heart, one empire. Their sandals carve into the dust, step after agonizing step, as the earth trembles beneath their relentless march. Each soldier carries not only a sword and shield, but the crushing weight of survival itself. Hunger gnaws at their stomachs, blisters tear at their flesh, and the promise of death waits at every horizon. This is not glory, this is not triumph. This is the brutal reality of marching in a Roman legion, where pain is constant, weakness is death, and only the strongest endure. The horizon stretches endlessly. Before the break of dawn, a shadow still crawl across the barren earth, a thunderous sound, the call of the Roman legion. 40,000 men rise as one, their breath misting in the icy air, their sandals slick with morning dew. There is no time for comfort, no moment for rest. The empire moves forward, and they must follow. The march begins. The sound of thousands of hobnailed sandals striking the earth creates a rhythm, steady, unbroken, relentless. With each step, the earth itself seems to groan beneath the weight of men, weapons, and war. The Roman soldier does not simply walk. He carries his world upon his shoulders. Swords, javelins, rations, tools, armor, a burden that can weigh more than 30 kilograms. And yet there is no choice. The empire demands movement, but the roads of conquest are unforgiving. Through the forests of Germania, where the mist hangs low and the cold bites into their bones, every step is a battle against nature itself. In the blazing deserts of Africa, the sand sears their skin, and the heat scorches their lungs with every breath. Across jagged mountain passes in the frozen north, wind slices like knives, and the air thins until every inhalation feels like drowning, yet the legion marches on. It is not the distance that breaks a man, it is the endless repetition. Hour after hour, day after day, week after week, from the rising sun until its fall beyond the hills, there is no escape, no respite. A soldier learns quickly that pain is a companion, one that does not leave. Blisters form, muscles tear, but the man who falters does not survive. Behind them, the unforgiving voice of the centurion drives them forward. Orders bark like thunder. No excuses, no weakness. The punishment for falling behind is brutal. Sometimes a public lashing, sometimes being forced to carry two men's burdens. And if you collapse entirely, the legion leaves you behind. This is the empire's price. The land itself conspires against them. Rivers swell with freezing waters, forcing soldiers to wade through torrents that numb their legs and steal their breath. Muddy roads swallow sandals whole, turning each step into a desperate fight not to sink. The sun blinds, the rain lashes, and storms rise without warning, drowning their path in chaos. And yet they endure. They endure because failure is unthinkable. The Roman soldier is more than flesh and blood. He is the will of Rome made manifest. The empire does not pause for comfort, and so neither can he. Every step forward is an act of defiance, against the land, against exhaustion, against death itself. But in this sea of suffering, a strange transformation takes place. A legion is not an army of men, it is a single living organism. Each soldier moves in unison, their steps synchronized, their breaths aligned. One heartbeat, one purpose, one destiny. When one man stumbles, another takes his burden. When one voice falters, thousands roar as one. And in that unyielding rhythm, in that symphony of discipline and endurance, the empire advances. Cities fall, kingdoms crumble, and the world bends to the will of Rome. Not because of swords drawn or victories won, but because tens of thousands marched when others would have fallen. For the legionary, the road is endless, the suffering unrelenting. And yet, in the dust and sweat and agony, there is something unspoken. Immortality, the men who endure these marches carve their names not into stone, but into the very bones of history. The march continues, always forward, always Rome. A soldier stands at the edge of dawn, his silhouette barely visible in the faint glow of a waking sun. His breath hangs in the cold air, but his body is already drenched in sweat. Before him lies a burden that will define his existence, the weight of Rome itself. A Roman legionary does not simply march. He hauls his life, his survival, and his empire across unforgiving lands. Upon his back rests a fortress of iron and wood, a scutum, the towering curved shield, almost a door of defence, nearly 10 kilograms of layered wood and metal. A gladius, the short stabbing sword, sheathed at his waist, forged for the intimacy of killing. 2 pila heavy throwing spears, each weighing several kilograms, strapped to his side. A helmet of bronze or iron resting upon his sweat-soaked armor lorica segmentata, layers of metal strips locked tight across his chest, weighing him down like chains. And yet this is only the beginning. The soldier carries not only weapons, but his survival. Strapped across his shoulders, so bound to a wooden pole, are rations, cooking pots, tools, extra sandals, and a cloak for the freezing nights. Every man is his own beast of burden. On average, a Roman soldier hauls 30 to 40 kilograms, a crushing weight, mile after mile, step after agonizing step. By midday, the strain becomes unbearable. Sweat stings his eyes, salt crusts his lips, and every muscle screams beneath the merciless load. His shoulders bleed where straps bite into flesh. His spine aches with every uneven step. The world narrows to one thought. But there is no sympathy, no mercy. Cuts through the dust-filled air, barking orders with an authority sharper than any blade. The formation must remain tight, the pace relentless. Fall behind, and you do not rest. You carry double. Discipline is iron, and punishment is swift. And yet there is strategy behind this cruelty. The Empire understood that an army dependent on wagons and supply chains is an army vulnerable to hunger and defeat. So Rome forged men into machines of endurance. Each legionary became a moving fortress, self-sufficient and unstoppable. The tools they carried could build camps, fortifications, and roads. Their rations could sustain them in isolation. And their weapons, always at hand, turned every man into a soldier ready to fight at a moment's command. But the weight does more than test the body, it tests the mind. As the hours pass, exhaustion becomes an enemy greater than any barbarian blade. Shadows dance at the edges of vision, each step heavier than the last. The distant sound of sandals striking earth merges into a single endless drumbeat. Time stretches, warping into an eternity of suffering where the only markers of progress are pain and dust. Yet amid this torment, something remarkable happens. In the endless march, burdened by impossible weight, the soldiers learn to breathe as one. They shift their loads in rhythm, shield against shield, shoulder against shoulder, their bodies adapting, their minds hardening. A new identity emerges, forged in exhaustion and iron. They are no longer men, they are the legion, and this is where Rome's true strength lies. It was not the gleam of polished armor, nor the precision of the gladius, nor even the brilliance of Roman tactics that conquered the world. It was this, the unyielding discipline, the ability to endure what others could not. Where other armies collapsed under hunger, fatigue, and suffering, the legions advanced step by relentless step, each man a pillar of willpower, holding up the empire itself. The weight never grows lighter, the burden never fades. But the Roman soldier learns an unshakable truth. The pain will not break him. And as long as he can take one more step, Rome moves forward. In the heart of the Roman legion, fear walks beside loyalty. It is said that the strength of the Roman army did not lie in its swords, nor in its shields, but in its discipline, and that discipline was absolute. From the moment a recruit stepped into camp, he ceased to be a man and became something far greater, a tool of the empire. But to forge this tool, Rome used fire and cruelty. Orders were not requests, commands were not questioned. A single mistake, a moment of hesitation, and the consequences were brutal. Every soldier lived beneath the watchful gaze of his centurion, the iron hand of Rome's authority. His voice carried across the ranks like rolling thunder, barking commands that brooked no disobedience. To falter in formation, to drop one's shield, to lag behind on the march, these were not small failings. They were insults to the empire itself. And Rome did not forgive insults. The punishments were legend. A man who disobeyed an order might be stripped, beaten, or branded before his comrades, a living warning carved into flesh. A soldier who abandoned his post in battle faced execution without hesitation. And yet, there existed a punishment so feared, so terrible, that it became a whispered curse among the ranks: decimation. When a unit showed cowardice, desertion, or open defiance, it was assembled before the entire legion. The soldiers drew lots. And then 1 in every 10 men was beaten to death by their brothers in arms. This was the empire's message. Rome does not forgive weakness. Rome consumes it. But beneath the cruelty was a terrible brilliance. Rome understood something other armies did not. That fear binds men as tightly as loyalty. The soldier feared his centurion. He feared punishment. He feared dishonor. But most of all, he feared breaking the rhythm of the legion, because to fail was not to endanger himself, but the man beside him. And so the legion moved as one. Day after day, the soldiers trained relentlessly, hours under the punishing sun, wielding wooden swords twice as heavy as their real weapons, running drills until their muscles screamed. Shields lifted, gladii thrust. Pila hurled, formations tested again and again until obedience became instinct. When a command was given, there was no thought, only action. For in the chaos of battle, hesitation meant death. This was why the Roman army conquered the world. Discipline over chaos, order over panic, unity over fear. When others broke and scattered before the roar of battle, the legions stood like walls of iron, unyielding and unbroken. Even when surrounded, they did not falter. Even when outnumbered, they did not run. Each man knew his place, his duty, his purpose. But the price of this perfection was staggering. The weight of obedience crushed individuality. A soldier's life was no his own. He marched where he was ordered, fought when commanded, and died without question. Mercy was a luxury, and freedom was a dream left behind the moment he swore his oath to Rome. And yet, this relentless discipline forged something extraordinary. Out of thousands of frightened farmers, shepherds, and laborers, the legion shaped an unstoppable machine of war. The individual disappeared, but the legion endured. A single man's life meant nothing, but Rome's survival meant everything. This is the paradox of the Roman soldier's existence. He was both master of the battlefield and prisoner of the empire's will. And so under the blazing sun or beneath the freezing rain, through forests, deserts, and rivers, the soldier obeyed, not out of love, not of pride, but because in the Roman legion, disobedience meant death, and discipline meant survival. Before the clash of swords comes the silence of suffering. For every victory carved into the pages of history, there are untold marches, endless roads littered with sweat, blood, and bone. Long before the Roman legion ever faced an enemy's blade, it faced a far greater foe, the land itself. As the army pushed deeper into hostile territory, far from the safety of Rome's granaries, food became as precious as gold. Rations dwindled, bread hardened to stone, meat rotted beneath the merciless sun. And yet the soldiers marched, driven not by hunger, but by duty, by fear, by the unspoken truth that stopping meant death. Each man carried several days' worth of grain on his back, but when the supplies ran down to whisper, stomachs hollowed, ribs pressed against skin, and men chewed on leather straps just to trick the body into silence. Sometimes the soldiers boiled wild roots pulled from the earth. Sometimes they slaughtered their own pack animals, the very beasts that once carried their burdens, eating flesh cooked over dying embers before collapsing into restless sleep. But food was only part of the torment. The march brought another cruel master, thirst. Under the blazing sun across deserts and open plains, the soldiers' mouths turned to sand. Lips cracked and bled, tongues swelled until swallowing became agony. Water skins, once filled at distant rivers, grew empty far too soon, and yet the march did not stop. The command was simple: endure or die. Sometimes the legion would reach a river after days without water, but salvation was an illusion. Soldiers would kneel at the edge, trembling hands scooping muddy water into their mouths, only to fall violently ill hours later. Parasites wrought and unseen poisons claimed as many lives as any barbarian spear. Then came the nights. As darkness spread across the wild, the legion would halt and pitch camp, a fortress built by weary hands, raised from earth and timber under starlight. Fires burned low, not for warmth, but for survival. Men huddled close to their shields, shivering in wet cloaks as the cold cut deeper than any sword. Sleep brought no comfort, only dreams haunted by hunger and thirst, and still the soldiers endured. But the deadliest enemy was neither famine nor thirst. It was disease. The endless march broke bodies and spirits alike. Unwashed wounds festered beneath armor, Blisters rotted into infections. Fever swept through ranks like wildfire, turning strong men into shadows of themselves. Dysentery stole strength, coughing fits turned lungs to ash, and unseen plagues crept quietly from man to man. Yet there was no mercy, no rest. A soldier too weak to walk was often left behind, abandoned to the wilderness, the vultures, and the silenced, forgotten names. For the legion could not wait. Rome's wars were fought on time, and time showed no compassion. And so the legion learned to fight an invisible war, a battle waged not against flesh and steel, but against their own bodies, against the earth, against the merciless weight of survival itself. But here lies the paradox. It was this suffering, this unending torment that forged Rome's dominance. Every empty stomach hardened resolve, every dry throat bred endurance, every fever survived, became proof that the legion was unbreakable. Rome conquered not because it fought, but because it endured when others could not. And so the march continued through wastelands of dust and bone, across rivers swollen with disease, over mountains that swallowed men whole. One foot after the other, breath ragged and shallow, every heartbeat a prayer for survival. For in the Roman legion, hunger was inevitable, thirst was certain, and death was always near. But the soldier's oath demanded only one thing: keep moving. In the silence between footsteps, Brotherhood is born. Amid the dust and agony of endless marches, beneath the crushing weight of armor, through hunger, thirst, and fever, one truth emerges: a Roman soldier does not survive alone. When thousands march shoulder to shoulder, through lands that breathe death with every gust of wind, a bond forms stronger than steel. It begins quietly, a glance exchanged, a shared ration of stale bread, a hand steadying a comrade when his knees falter beneath the burden of survival. And yet, before long it becomes something far greater, a brotherhood forged in fire and suffering. A soldier learns quickly that his life depends not on his sword, but on the man beside him. In the chaos of the march, when exhaustion blurs vision to drag him into the earth, it is his brothers who pull him forward, carrying his burden when his strength fails. One heartbeat, one step, one purpose. This is the silent strength of the Roman legion. In battle, these bonds become unbreakable walls. The testudo formation, the legendary tortoise, is its perfect symbol. Hundreds of shields interlock, forming a living fortress. The man on your right shields your heart. The man on your left shields your breath. If he falls, you fall. If you break, the formation dies. And so the legionary learns a sacred truth. Protect him. It is this understanding, this unity beyond fear, beyond self, that sets the Roman soldier apart from the rest of the world. Other armies fought as individuals. The legion fought as one organism. 1,000 voices, 1,000 lives, moving with a single purpose. But this brotherhood is not built on gentle words. It is hammered into existence by hardship. Men witness one another at their weakest, vomiting from thirst, trembling from fever, collapsing beneath the weight of impossible miles. They see each other bleed, weep and suffer, and still they endure together. The man beside you becomes more than a fellow soldier. He becomes your anchor in a sea of suffering, the only constant in a world built on uncertainty and death. Bonds forged under such strain cannot be broken, not by distance, not by time, not even by death itself. And yet this brotherhood carries a darker truth. Sometimes survival demands choices that haunt a soldier's soul forever. When rations run out, when disease claims half the camp, when enemies press from all sides, a man may have to watch his closest friend collapse and leave him behind, because Rome moves forward, always forward, and the legion cannot wait for the weak. But even in grief, unity does not shatter. Every loss deepens the bond among the living. Every fallen brother becomes a memory carried in silence, fueling the fire to endure, to march, to fight another day. This is how Rome conquered the world, not through numbers, not through strength alone, but through an unyielding spirit of survival, a brotherhood so fierce, so relentless, that it turned tens of thousands of ordinary men into a single, unstoppable war machine. When the storms raged, they marched. When hunger gnawed, they marched. When death claimed friend after friend, they marched still. For in the Roman legion, pain was shared, burdens were divided, and survival was collective. The empire lived not in marble nor in gold, but in the unbroken chain of men who refused to fall apart when everything around them crumbled. And as the dust settled behind them and the blood dried upon their shields, they left behind no monuments, no names, no songs sung of their suffering. But they carved their story into the earth itself, into the very shape of the world Rome would rule. The Brotherhood endured, the Legion endured, and Rome became eternal. And so the dust settles. Across endless miles of blood and stone, through blistering deserts and frozen mountain passes, the Roman legion marched. Their sandals carved roads where none had existed. Their sweat soaked into the earth and their willpower bent empires to their knees. But history often remembers only the victories, the banners raised, the cities conquered, the empires crushed beneath Rome's heel. It forgets the endless marches, the blistered feet, the gnawing hunger, the thirst that burned like fire in the throat. It forgets the men, thousands of nameless soldiers who bore the weight of an empire upon their backs. Every step they took was a defiance of love. Every breath was an act of rebellion against exhaustion, pain, and death. And yet they endured. They endured the crushing weight of armor and supplies that cut into their shoulders until flesh turned raw. They endured the merciless discipline and punishment where one mistake could cost you your life. They endured hunger, thirst, and disease as silent enemies, striking from within long before swords ever crossed. They endured the endless march where survival depended on the man beside you, where brotherhood became the only shield against despair. This is why the Roman legion became more than an army. It became a force of nature, a machine of flesh and steel, bound by discipline, driven by survival, and fueled by something far greater than fear, unyielding brotherhood. No army, no kingdom could stand against the relentless tide of men who refused to break. And yet, behind the myth, behind the glory, lies the brutal truth. Rome was not built by emperors, nor senators, nor kings. Rome was built by ordinary men who marched until their feet bled, who carried burdens that would break most, who stared into the jaws of death and kept moving forward. And so their story echoes through time, not as a celebration of conquest, but as a testament to the power of endurance. Now the question falls to you. When your path grows dark, when the road stretches endlessly before you, when the weight you carry threatens to crush you, will you stop? Or will you march? The Roman soldier did not have a choice. You do. If their blood, sweat, and sacrifice could shape the ancient world, then what will your endurance shape today? What empire will you build? Not of stone or steel, but of strength, will, and determination, because history remembers those who refuse to surrender. It remembers those who endure when others fall. It remembers those who, against all odds, keep marching forward. The legion's footsteps still echo across time. Can you hear them? The choice is yours. Now march.